Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this Thursday night edition of the Round the Ropes radio show. Now, guys, we've been talking a lot about Flex Wrestling. We had Price Puregold on earlier. And our next guest is somebody who I've been wanting on for a while. Some might remember him as a sensei. Some might remember him as part of one of the greatest factions, you can say, in Immortal with Edge of Hope. Welcome to the show for the first time, the one and only Mattick. Mattick, welcome to the show. How you been, my friend?
Good, man. Thanks for having me. This is great. I love this.
Absolutely. I'm glad we were able to make this happen. And obviously, like I said, you got the big match coming up with Flex, but I want to get into a few other things before we get, into that. For people who are watchers who may not know exactly, who is Mattick?
Mattick, he's the young lion of the West. People make fun of me now because I'm not as young and I'm not from the West, but the young lion of the West is a term coined from Rochester. Rochester, New York is where I'm from. And Rochester used to be, or still is actually known as the young lion of the West. So that's why I call myself the young lion of the West. Pro wrestler from Rochester, like I said, been wrestling 12 years. Head coach at Ground Zero now. Trying to wrestle all over, man.
I totally get that. Now, what got you into pro wrestling? Was there a match? Like, was it one of those things that, you happened to scroll through the TV and you saw like a match on WWE or like WCW back in the day? Like, what got you into pro wrestling?
Sure. So I used to live in Albuquerque, New Mexico for a period of time. And some neighborhood kids were watching at one of their houses. And that's kind of how I stumbled upon wrestling. I didn't know what wrestling was. It was about 97, so I'm an attitude kid. And The Rock was the guy that kind of stood out to me. So, if we're talking favorites of all time, The Rock was my favorite since I was a kid. And that's kind of how I started watching wrestling.
I totally get that. It's funny, though, because when I ask wrestlers that question, I get so many different answers. But 9 times out of 10, it's usually The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, or pick any other main eventer from the Attitude Era.
For sure. Absolutely.
But obviously, like I said, you're doing stuff right now in Immortal. First thing I want to get to with Immortal.
Yeah.
My first introduction to you was the Sensei character.
Okay. Awesome.
Whose idea was that? And kind of just walk us through like how that whole thing came to fruition.
Yeah, for sure. So COVID. COVID was a big thing, and Immortal had this 24/7 championship, the Dippin' Donuts championship. And so when wrestling wasn't really happening, I had the 24/7 championship during COVID. So I did a whole bunch of skits for Immortal Championship Wrestling. You've probably seen a lot of the promos on YouTube. Did a whole bunch of funny stuff. When wrestling opened back up after COVID, the 24/7 championship, I kind of clung on to that. And, Mike King was bringing in guys to wrestle. Like he brought in like Swoggle for me to wrestle, Gangrel, and then Glacier. So my thought process was I'll just kind of do a parody gimmick for each one of these names I'm wrestling. And then when it got to Glacier, I did the Sensei gimmick, and King really liked that. So it kind of stuck around after that. So after that match, I kind of just morphed into Sensei Mattick for a period of time.
Now, obviously, we saw a lot of people hold that title, and it's and its run. Obviously, you being, some would say you were kind of like the R-Truth with that, with how many times you held that title.
Yeah, definitely held it the most out of anybody. I lost count. I can't tell you how many times.
Who would you say was your greatest challenger for that title?
So I would say Danny Adam was probably my greatest challenger, my greatest rival, even though he never held the championship. But he was always trying to go after it.
Because like I said, I remember you holding it. I remember Brother Jonas held it for a while. I remember there was one time, may have been in Rome, when Charlie won it.
Oh, yep. Charlie Goldberg,
So, and I think that's what I kind of looked at it as. Well, if we're giving it to the non-wrestlers, I'll take a run with the belt.
Yeah, I think at one point at my previous wrestling school, a dummy won it from me, just a workout dummy. So even inanimate objects were winning it. My son, my 1-year-old son, beat me for it.
Do you think we're ever going to see do you think the 24/7 that not the 24/7 title, but the Dippin' Donuts one? Do you think we're ever going to see that back again with you? Or
So I don't think so. It's retired. Immortal just inducted me into their Hall of Fame in Cobleskill. Thank you. I appreciate that. The Sensei Mattick character, at least, into the Hall of Fame, and part of that Hall of Fame induction was the 24/7 championship. So I don't think we're going to be seeing that anytime soon, at least. I'd never say never in wrestling, though, right?
Exactly. So now, obviously, you did the Sensei stuff, and that was going over great with the fans.
Mm-hmm.
When did you finally realize, okay, maybe it was time to change and kind of go more into like this darker character that you?
Yes.
You have now?
Yeah. So Edge of Hope actually was kind of around at the same time as the Sensei Mattick character. Saren Rain, Jeremiah Richter, Darren Crow, and myself, and then sometimes our valet, our manager Foxy, in Excite at least. It was kind of happening simultaneously. But as when Saren Rain kind of got introduced to Immortal, we're used to tagging, so the idea came about that we just introduced the whole group. So I kind of put the Sensei Mattick character on the shelf and just kind of do what I was doing at every other promotion I was wrestling for at the time. So that's kind of how that all started at Immortal.
Believe me, it's actually funny you mentioned Saren Rain, because tomorrow night on the show we're actually going to have Saren on. So
nice, awesome.
It'd be nice to actually have him on too. But It's funny because I was actually a couple days ago, I had on Chael Connors, and obviously, being with you, being that you guys were a part of the tag team division and you have CXR, I asked him the question. I want to ask you the question as well. For a solid probably 6 months or so, the tag team division of Immortal was on fire. You had Sons of. No, go ahead.
No, I'm just agreeing with you.
You had Sons of Allah, you had CXR, you had you guys, you had Power Supply, and those are just four that come off the top of my head. What did you think kind of made that division so special for those couple of months?
Yeah, I think it was just because it was new, it was fresh, just introducing new tag teams. Because I think prior to all of those tag teams being introduced, they kind of just introduced the tag titles, right? I believe the Stetsons had it first, were the first tag team champions at Immortal, and then it kind of went to the Sons of Allah. And then we started introducing these fresh teams. And, I think Edge of Hope and CXR are intertwined. We've wrestled at multiple promotions against each other. And that's kind of Edge of Hope's greatest rival right now is CXR. So I think we just mesh so well together with our styles.
And I still remember, I think it was when Immortal was at the Nexus Center the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And there was the Fatal 4-Way for the tag belts.
4-way. Yep.
And the biggest thing I remember with that was the spot I remember with that was Blaze doing a dive.
Yeah.
On the outside. And he's not a jumper like that.
No.
So I just think, the chemistry that yes, there's other teams as well, but I mentioned the four of you guys because I feel like you guys were really the cornerstones of that tag team division. And I don't remember who I said it to, but I think I said it to TJ actually. You guys reminded, especially me, of it was like the modern day Dudleys, Hardys, and Edge and Christian.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Type of rivalry where it was like, okay, one show the Sons of Allah were going to win. Then it was like, okay, that is going to be Sons of Allah versus Edge of Hope, and it was like you always knew the tag teams were going to put on match of the night. I felt like.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And
I love tag team wrestling.
I'm a huge tag team wrestler fan, and to me, I can name you probably 10 tag team title matches that I love before I can probably name you one singles match.
Sure. Yeah. Tag team wrestling.
Now let me, we'll bring up tag team wrestling. Let me ask you this now. As a wrestler who's been doing this for a while, do you prefer to be a tag team wrestler or singles?
Yeah, so like when I first started wrestling, I never thought about tag team wrestling. I never saw it in that light. I always thought I was just going to be a singles person. And within my first few months of wrestling, I was thrown into a tag team and kind of started learning with that person, and I kind of fell in love with it. I've had a couple different tag partners in my career, so I've always been known kind of as a tag team guy. And it's funny because I'm from Rochester, and Rochester is really known as a tag team town. Like we got Cheech and Colin from Rochester, To Infinity Beyond. We got High Seas, Dunn and Marcos. I mean, I'll bring it up. We're doing a big tournament for Dunn and Marcos, Ring Crew Express for Ground Zero Wrestling in September. And it's a big tag tournament. So Rochester has this big tag team lineage. And because of that, I think I've fallen in love with tag team wrestling. So I feel like I'm more of a tag team guy than anything. Not saying I can't do both, but I enjoy tag team wrestling.
And also it means you don't have to do 100% of the work. You only have to do 50 because you have your partner to do.
Right. Now, let's be honest. Saren does 75% of the work. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, it's funny you bring that up. I remember. I don't remember if you guys. I think you guys were a part of it. The cage match.
Yes, with Team Friendship.
Yes, and that's another team. Team Friendship. They had them into. And I remember that one because I was doing camera work.
Oh, okay,
for that match, and just the spots. I mean, you guys really told a story in there. And now, leading into that, it kind of leads into my next question. Being that you've been doing this long enough, you've been doing this now for, not 15 minutes, you've been doing this for a number of years. Is it more important to you to have a good match or to tell a good story?
Yeah, I prefer story over anything. Yeah, I like telling a story in the ring. I like when things make sense. I love the build to certain matches. I love feuds. I mean, I think feuds is what is more memorable in wrestling than matches, to be honest. So, I mean, I prefer telling a story overall.
And it's funny because that's one thing I iterated on this show, on the regular show for the last 4 years now, almost 4 years now, is because a lot of, like, for me, for example, I travel quite a bit for shows.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times I'm traveling, like if I'm going to, let's say, a show in Jersey or a show in upstate New York, I'm traveling at a minimum 3 hours, 4 hours at a minimum. And a lot of times for me, it's like, okay, if I'm spending 4 hours in the car to go to a show, I got to be emotionally invested.
Sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
And I feel like that's almost become like a lost art now.
Yeah.
Is fans go to a show and they're like, ooh, I'm going to see wrestler A take on wrestler B. But I'm like, but if there's no story that they're telling and there's no meaning behind it, and it's just, well, we're going to put wrestler A with wrestler B, and what's the story behind it? I'll just give them 10 minutes, let them go do what they want to do. I'm like, to me, that doesn't make sense. To me, it's like you rather tell the story, get the fans into it, and then go from there. Because I look at it as each match is almost like a mini movie.
Sure.
And you go to see a movie, you're not going to sit there and just go to a movie for the heck of it. If that makes sense. But
yeah, absolutely.
Before we get into what's going on now with Flex, a couple other things I just want to bring up. I know you mentioned before, greatest rival, tag team wise is CXR. Single star, because obviously you've done some single stuff as well. I know you mentioned Danny Adam for the 24/7. Is he? Would you consider him your greatest rival overall?
No, I wouldn't say overall. I think just for that time period in the 24/7 championship, he would have been. But if I'm thinking like all around, it's hard to say because I've had a lot of good matches with people, and I've had a lot of good feuds. Man, if I'm going way back, my very first feud in wrestling was with wrestler named Gabriel Saint, now known as Cameron Akasha Black. We did a series in Upstate Pro Wrestling where it ended in an Iron Man match, and it was good. It was one of my first feuds, early 2014, 2015, and it's probably one of my favorites, and it stands today. probably person I've wrestled the most is a gentleman named Maximo Suave, also from the upstate area. He's now in OVW.
Wow.
And then if we're talking currently, I think you had him on earlier today. You said Price Pure Gold. He's a guy that I have really good chemistry with, and we have great matches.
No, I definitely, like I said, I've seen the stuff you do, like especially with Immortal, and I always get a kick out of it. But looking ahead now, you got Flex Wrestling coming up.
Yep.
Take us through what's going through your mindset going into this, being that this is a debut show for a brand new company. How did you get brought into all this, and just kind of take us through that whole.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really exciting, to be honest. Anytime a debut show, it's a gamble, right? Fans are not aware of maybe the company. It's a new area, running in a new area, new town. Yes, maybe some of the wrestlers are familiar. So it's kind of gamble to the promoters, the ones running it. But I'm very fortunate that I'm known kind of in the Finger Lakes region. I run a wrestling school in Rochester, so I was asked to be on this show, and so I really appreciate it. And to be wrestling Colin Delaney is a really cool thing. Like, Colin's the guy that trained me. Colin Delaney trained me to be a wrestler. He was my trainer, my coach. So it's kind of a student versus teacher matchup here. And Colin has grown to be one of my best friends. I've known him for 12 years at this point. And this is only the third time I've wrestled Colin one-on-one. So I'm really excited about that. And it's kind of like the rubber match, really. The first time we wrestled was in 2017 and he beat me. The last time we wrestled was in 2022 and I beat him. So now we're here in 2025, third time we're wrestling, and it's really cool because Colin Delaney is a guy I have a lot of respect for. He's very underrated, very smart, great teacher, and really should be signed somewhere, in my opinion.
No, I completely agree with with everything with what you said about Colin. Now, obviously you've been doing this for a while now, and you're going up against somebody like Colin, who is formerly of WWE. People don't realize that part, but he did have a brief run in WWE.
Yeah,
I think he was part of the WWE ECW, if I remember
he
correctly.
was, yeah.
Yep. Obviously when you're in the ring with him, and obviously you've been in the ring with him plenty of times now, do you get starstruck at all, or is it just another day in the office for you?
I mean, not with Colin anymore, because he's a guy I see weekly. He's one of the coaches at my school at Ground Zero. So I see him quite often. We text, we chat. So I'm not necessarily starstruck, but I'm not lost on the fact that he's been all over and he's wrestled the who's who of professional wrestling. And that's why he's so great. He's a guy with a lot of knowledge, and he's very crafty in that ring, So I'm not necessarily starstruck, but I'm still excited because this is a great matchup, and I think it's going to be, in my opinion, a show stealer.
Oh, I could definitely see that. Now, I've asked this actually to every person I've had on covering, lead up to this. I want to ask you this question, and it's going to be a tough question, but you can see where I'm going with this in a second. You look at upstate wrestling as a whole, and there's quite a few companies. I've mentioned this in previous interviews as well. You have the Buffalo area, you have the Rochester area. If you come closer, you have obviously Flex Wrestling, you have Immortal, you have Dynasty. Maybe not so much now, but what would you say, maybe going more into next year, would be the reason why Flex kind of stands out from all those other companies?
Yeah, I think it's just the people running it and the mindset. I think they all have similar mindsets, and they just want wrestling to be great. They want to invest in their homegrown talent, and I think that's what will set them apart. Yes, it's great bringing in names. I mean, Rhino's gonna be on the show, and that's freaking awesome. Like ECW original, right? But there's a lot of homegrown guys from upstate. There's Sean Carr. Sean Carr's been a champion everywhere he's gone. He's wrestled the who's who of wrestling, and he's wrestling Rhino. You got HC Loke, who is in ECW. Like, he brings a wealth of knowledge, 30 years of wrestling experience, and then we got the young guys, the up and comers, like a Chal Connors, a Saren Rain, a TJ Epics, and then guys from my school like Price Puregold, Damian Saint, Carmelo Lee. Like, I just think they're going to be focusing on a lot of the local talent, and I really think that's what's going to set Flex apart from all these other places.
Now, let me ask you this. Now, obviously, you have your match with Colin, but taking your match out of it for a second here,
for sure,
what match would you say? And obviously, I don't know if there might be other matches announced. Before, we still have, a little bit over a couple of weeks till we get to the show. So you don't know. Also, in last minute thing, what other match are you looking forward to, excluding your match?
Yeah, of course. I think HC Loke and Price Puregold comes to mind. Some of my best matches have been with both of those gentlemen. So I think them two is a really good matchup. I'm very pro Price Puregold. Very big fan of Price, not just because he's my student, but because he's a very hard worker, and he makes the best of every opportunity given to him. And HC Loke is, I consider him a mentor. He didn't necessarily train me, but anytime I need advice in wrestling, I always look to him. He's a role model and a locker room leader for sure. And then aside from Loke versus Price, I think Chal Connors versus Mike Skyros is also going to be a really good matchup. A lot of people don't realize I also trained Chal Connors. I know Loke will take credit for him because I built the foundation for Chal, but then HC Loke kind of took him to the next level, which is great. And then there's Mike Skyros, man. I'm a big fan of Mike Skyros. He's gone all over. He's been making a name for himself lately, outside of the New York scene. Even look at his past year, like the guys he's wrestled, like Minoru Suzuki. Very jealous that he got to wrestle Minoru Suzuki. Really, I really wanted that match. I mean, a lot of people wanted that match. Let's be honest.
Absolutely.
But two young studs, man, who I honestly could see signed to a big contract in the next 5 years. Either one of them. So honestly, those two matches, aside from my own, I'm really looking forward to. I mean, I think the whole card as it stands is pretty stacked, though.
I totally get where you're coming from. And actually, it's when you bring up Mike Skyros, because on our show next Tuesday, Mike Skyros will be on with us, as well as, and I'm going to mention this again, and this gives me chills that actually can mention this, AEW superstar Nyla Rose will be on with us as well.
That's awesome.
So, yes, it's going to be nice to have Mike back on. But, obviously, this is a big show. There's only one debut show.
Right.
And it's, as the saying goes, it's the first impression, is what matters. So I know I was invited to come up, but unfortunately it's kind of a little bit of a trek for me to come up, but I'm hopefully at some point going to make it up there for
man,
a show at some point.
I really think Flex is going to knock it out of the park. I have high hopes for Flex, and I think they're going to be one of those independents in the upstate area that's going to carry on to the future.
I say this to every one of the guys I've had on so far. I'm appreciative with Flex that I'm given the opportunity just to be a small spoke on the wheel to help, have guys like yourself, have guys like Chal, Sean Carr, HC Loke, to give you guys sort of like the opportunity to have, potentially have more eyes on you. So I'm very appreciative for that.
Yeah, and we appreciate you, man. This is great. I know wrestlers like to do these interviews, so thank you for giving us the platform.
Absolutely. And Mattick, I look at it as the way, and I said this to a lot of people, there's Busted Open, and Busted Open covers more of like the WWE, AEW, like the bigger companies. But I feel like if it wasn't for independent wrestling, WWE, AEW, Ring of Honor wouldn't be what they are today.
Oh, absolutely. 90% of the roster right now on TV is come from independent wrestling. They really do.
And so with me, it's like I figure I want to give independent wrestlers, give them that opportunity. Not saying I'm going to be the next Busted Open, because I always like to be, the first and only around the ropes. But my whole thing is, if I can give independent wrestlers that opportunity, why not?
Yeah, for sure.
And that's really, but a couple of last minute questions I got for you before we wrap things up here.
Mm-hmm.
Who would be your dream opponent? But here's the twist though. Here's a little bit of a twist though. Because you're a tag team, it's going to be both singles and tag team.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah, so I think my dream match currently, if I'm thinking, I have a couple. I mean, I always keep a list, but Kevin Owens, he was a guy that when I started watching independent wrestling, I really fell in love with. That's a guy I would love to mix it up in the ring with. I mean, it'd be awesome. I mean, I'm just gonna put it at that. Chris Hero is another guy I would love to get in the ring with. He's one of my favorites. And then if I'm thinking tag team wrestling, it's a little harder. There's so many great tag teams. Man, if I'm thinking style wise on independence and what we would match up with, I really like the Kogar brothers, Atticus and Otis. Mm-hmm. There's Righteous, Vincent and Bill Carr would be really cool. If I'm thinking TV wise, I mean, I think everybody's, I mean, at least from the Attitude Era, we're talking about Hardys and Edge and Christian, right? So, yeah. I mean, I think those are the tag teams I would like to mix it up with.
I could definitely see that. And then 2 more questions I got, and one of them really just dawned on me. You look at, actually, no, I'm going to go this route. Dream venue for you to work, for you to perform in.
Yeah, she's so like, it's funny. Like if I'm local and I'm in Rochester, just based off venues that people have wrestled in, I've wrestled in the Blue Cross Arena, which is pretty cool. There's a place called the Main Street Armory, which used to hold wrestling. I've never wrestled in that building, so that would be pretty cool. If I'm talking upper scale, ECW Arena, 2300, I would love to wrestle in that building. I think everybody's dream is to wrestle at Madison Square Garden. That's kind of the mecca and where kind of all the big matches started. And that's kind of, that'd be really cool.
Oh, I believe me, I think that's a dream for everybody, is to be in that building from one way or another. But
yeah,
last question I got for you, and this goes back to Flex Wrestling for a second here.
Sure.
Obviously, you get the matchup coming up with Colin, but who on the roster, who now would you want to cross paths with at a future Flex show?
Yeah, honestly, I'd love to mix it up with any of them. I mean, I think, I've already said I have good chemistry with Price. I'd love to wrestle Price, HC Loke, Chal, Skyrose, any of those. Sean Carr, I'd wrestle Sean Carr any day of the week. My interest would be when they start introducing championships. I think everybody wants that main title, right? I would absolutely love to be the first champion. So that's something I would gun for.
It's actually funny you bring that up. That actually just may start a new question out for future Flex Wrestling episodes. Thank you, Mattick.
Yeah, of course.
If you were to win the title, let's say, obviously not at this show, but let's say come 2026, there's the introduction of the title. Yeah. How important would that be for you to become the inaugural Flex heavyweight champion?
Absolutely. There could only be one first. I mean, I would absolutely, I'd be honored. I'd love that. You know what I mean? I would definitely be a fighting champion. I would love to wrestle any and all comers. I welcome them all. I mean, it would be cool. It'd be really cool to be the first champ.
Absolutely. And again, Mattick, I'm glad we were able to do this. I'm glad we were able to get you on. You were actually not only, like I said to you before, you were one of the guys I've been wanting on, going back to, with me covering Immortal. So I was glad we were able to do this. The door is always open for you whenever you want to come back on.
Awesome. Thank you, man.
Before we let you go, where can the fans connect with you on social media? And do you have anything else coming up that you'd like to promote? The floor is yours.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're looking to follow me on social media, it's at Mattick585. That's Mattick 585. That's across all platforms. I'm the, I said I run a school called Ground Zero. So go check out Ground Zero 585. We have a big show coming up in Rochester the 13th and 14th, part of Fringe Festival. It's a Dun & Marcos Cup. It's a 10-team tag team tournament with some of the best tag teams in the Northeast. So come check that out, part of Fringe Festival. And then, obviously Flex is coming up at the end of September. So buy those tickets, guys. Come watch me whip my trainer's ass, Colin Delaney. I hope we can swear. I apologize.
Yeah, you can.
But yeah, Colin, I'm looking forward to it, man.
But again, Mattick, I'm glad we were able to get you on. It was an honor to have you on, and definitely want to have you on again.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Guys, for Mattick, I'm John. Coming up tomorrow night, we got Sarah Rain coming up, and then we got Mike Skyros coming up next week, so you don't want to miss that. If you missed my interview with Mattick, interview with Price Pure Gold, or any of the past interviews I've done, you can go to our YouTube page, our Facebook page, or go to any podcast streaming site, and you can get it there. Guys, again, for Mattick, I'm John. Catch you guys next time.